Bhavash Mukherjee came to Shanghai 12 years ago. During one of his rounds in the city, he discovered that Tagore, the Indian noble lyric poet, had visited Shanghai in the 1920s. He decided to trace that journey of Tagore in Shanghai. Bhavash presented his findings in his documentary, during the making of which he also discovered more about Shanghai, China, and the people living here. Join China Untapped to witness a journey in search of Tagore. Bhavash Mukherjee is from India and lives in Shanghai. He never expected he would find Rabindranath Tagore and a revered Indian poet in a Shanghai alley.
I was actually walking down this lane towards Jululu, and it was evening, and I walked and I came back because I saw something in English. And I was taken aback that it was one of India's well-known poets out here. The grass was pretty up, so I could only see Tagore. So I had to, push it down to get the whole thing. So I'd asked one of them to, why don't you cut it? I'll pay it. And they just laughed at me. I don't think most Indians were aware of it.
It turns out that Tagore, the Nobel Prize winner for literature in 1913, stayed in one of the Shikumin houses during 2 of his 3 visits to China in the 1920s. The Shikumin house was home to a young Chinese poet, Xu Zhimo, and his wife, Lu Xiaoman, who was hugely influenced by Tagore. By the time he made this discovery, Bhavash had been in Shanghai for almost 10 years. He came to Shanghai in 1999 to work for Shanghai Daily, the first English-language newspaper of the city.
Bhavash is a very devoted foreign expert. He mostly worked night shift on the sports page. Shanghai Daily was launched at the end of 1999. He was among the first batch of foreign experts joining us, and he has worked for us since then.
Last year, when the newspaper celebrated its 12th anniversary, Bhavash was among the few foreign experts who got an award for his decade-long service with the paper.
I actually thought I would be here only for 6 months or 1 year, it was always going to be short term, but China surprised me.
The discovery of Tagore's name in an ordinary Shanghai alley was like unearthing a treasure trove of the city's rich literary history. Tagore was already 63 years old when he first touched the shores of China on April 12, 1924, a time of massive political upheaval in the country. He was warmly received. However, his advocacy of Eastern tradition and wisdom was scorned by some intellectuals as escapist idealism. For them, democracy and science was more needed to change China at that time.
Spent time in Shanghai Library archives and dug out materials. And after that, you get ambitious, and so I thought I could put together a small, maybe a very short 5-minute, 10-minute film.
Bhavash worked with his colleague Xu Qin to dig out whatever they could find about Tagore in Shanghai.
Materials about Tagore's visit to China in the 20s are huge and massive, but to put them together and make them shine, it's a great challenge and test. It's doing an academic paperwork for me. It's great learning. It's a rediscovery of Tagore and the Chinese history at that time.
They started by interviewing Chinese writers. Zhao Lihong is a famous poet in China and also the vice president of the Shanghai Writers Association.
在外国作家里面被翻译成中文的大概泰戈尔可能是数一数二的吧，他大概有超过1000万的文字被翻译成中文。就是在我这个少年时代，我就开始阅读泰戈尔，我喜欢他的文字，可以说他的文字对我是有比较大的影响。应该说泰戈尔的创作，在上世纪初，在中国新文学运动刚刚开始的时候，他影响了一大批作家，比如说冰心、徐志摩，他自己好几次来中国演讲，尽管有一些争议，但是他的文字。这个在大半个世纪里面一直在中国是非常有影响。除了文革10年，我们不读泰戈尔，其他的时间泰戈尔在中国还是有很大的影响。
After the Cultural Revolution, a lot of Chinese learnt about Tagore's poetry and prose from Zhao Lihong's article, which was published way back in 1980. Cao Lei, a famous voice artist, still has the tape she recorded of Tagore's poems over a decade ago.
1998年那个时候，上海英文出版社，他要录一盒那个泰戈尔的诗选的这个音带。那个时候我就比较多的看了他的作品，他写的诗里边那么动情，尤其是他有很多写爱情的诗，写的那么真啊。当然他自己一生也有很多坎坷，他也都在他的诗里边。把它写进去了，那种感觉慢慢到我这样的年龄，就越来越能够觉得跟他接近了。
She couldn't help reciting her favorite Tagore poem in her melodious voice.
坚定你的信念吧，我的心，天会破晓的，希望的种子深藏在泥土里。它会发芽的。
The poem was translated by Wu Yan, whose translations of Tagore's work are still regarded by many Chinese readers as the best of the lot. Bavash still remembers the time when he went to interview him.
He was already in his 90s that time. And we went to his house, this old Shikuman house, and he was so happy to see somebody come from India. I remember he said that he would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and translate 1 paragraph a day. And so it was one laborious work done.
这个人呢，既非外国人，是一个。我所喜欢的韩国来的中国人啊，我觉得拿来问我呢，使得我或者想到当初活过来去了啊。
So it was very nice to see that smile.
Mr. Wu Yan passed away in September 2010. This footage became his final public appearance. It took almost 2 years for Bavash to finish his documentary on Tagore. With all the hard work on research, the film eventually became a 34-minute production rather than a previously conceived short clip. Coming up next, Bavash's attachment to Shanghai deepened after his 2 children were born here. He also made a lot of local friends who enjoyed his love for Indian food. Stay tuned.